Welcome to Hard Talk. I'm Sarah Montague. Albania is the single most corrupt country in Europe, according to Transparency International. My guest today, Edi Rama, has promised to change that when he becomes the country's Prime Minister in September. A modern artist, he won international plaudits for transforming the capital, Tirana, when he was its mayor, not least by painting its grey buildings in bright colours. He's now promised a renaissance for the whole country. So can a former artist succeed where previous politicians have failed? Edi Rama, welcome to Hard Talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
Why are you likely to be any more successful in cleaning up Albania than previous politicians have been?
This has to be seen, but I think it's time for a clean-up of the country.
A clean-up of the country, and we're talking about a country with immense problems. I mean, as I say, Transparency International say not only you're the single most corrupt country in Europe, and you're slipping down the rankings, you're also one of the poorest countries in Europe. How are you proposing to address those challenges?
It's a country that has a bad reputation and, of course, not totally undeserved, but at the same time is a country with incredible potentials and with immense amount of talents living in the country or abroad. And just by giving you an example, after having won the elections, I've made an appeal to all the people that are young and talented inside or outside the country that want to join the new team for Albania, and the response is being incredibly positive. We have now nearly 10,000 people making their own application to serve the country. So, of course, this will go through competitions and all the set of procedures, but the response is incredibly good, and it means that there is hope and there is a very strong will to change.
Okay, you talk about an image, a terrible image of the country, and one that's not entirely undeserved. You once described it as the image of a land of prostitutes and illegal immigrants. Do you think that is still the perception of the country?
This was something I said in the 90s when...
In 2003 you were reported as saying it.
When... in
2003?
Maybe, but it's a long time ago.
It's not true any longer?
When really very insisting stereotype was quite disturbing for Albanians and for a population that do not deserve to be described as living in a country of prostitutes and so on. But in the same time, as I said, it's not totally undeserved image. We have done little to tackle it, and as a matter of fact, under the scrutiny of the European Union, because of our process towards the European integration, problems come out very clearly, and we need to tackle them.
Okay, and we should explain, you have requested 3 times that the European Commission consider Albania as a candidate, just as a candidate, and it has rejected each of those applications. Each time it said you've not even got effectively a foot in the process, because the reforms have not been significant enough.
It's true, and it's also true that one of the main problems, maybe the most disturbing one for the international community, has been the elections. The integrity of the electoral process, and finally, after a long time and after many efforts and many sacrifices, I would say, from the Albanian people and the opposition I had the privilege to lead, we succeeded to have an election that was a normal one. And I think after having passed this test, now we can reasonably be optimistic about having finally a positive answer for our candidate status.
What, you would expect that when?
I think so. I
When?
think so, and
this year?
I'm very hopeful that this will be the case in December or next spring.
Okay, well, they have many concerns, not least corruption, which we'll get into in a minute. But let's talk about that election, because you talk about the immense challenges in turning the country round. It's not clear, though, that the public necessarily think that you are the man for the job, because you are, after all, 8 years in opposition, and yet in these elections you only won one more seat than in the elections of 4 years ago. It was actually your coalition partner, Ilia Meta's Socialist Movement for Integration, that did very well out of these elections. It was Sali Berisha's government effectively thrown out. It was Ilia Meta's party who jumped from 4 to 16 seats. Now, this is a man who, we should be clear, you've chosen to go into government with him. He was in the past government, and yet only 2 years ago you said that he exemplified everything that was rotten about Albania.
It's true that we had a difficult past in terms of our relation inside the family of the left. The coalition partner of today is a party that has been born out of a split of the Socialist Party some years ago.
And he's been in with your rivals, your arch enemy.
And yes, and so we decided to unite the whole left, to enter in this campaign together with a coalition that succeeded. And I would not go in the arithmetics of seats, because we have quite a different system than here. And I think that the amount of votes we got, each of us, and at the same time all together, is due mostly to the fact that Albanians saw a united force seeking for change.
Okay, but let's talk about one of the things. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons that you fell out and were extremely critical of each other was an incident from a couple of years ago, video that appeared to show him discussing a bribe and boasting of his influence over the Chief Justice. And that was at the time when he was Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. Now, he has always denied that there was any wrongdoing. The Supreme Court dismissed the charges. And yet, when they did, you were reported in the local media as saying that the ruling mocked the citizens of Albania and underlined what is another step toward an unjust regime.
It's all true, and at the same time it's totally true that we need to look forward and to give to the Albanian people an alternative for change, which we did, and we won the elections on the base of a program for an Albanian Renaissance, and with very detailed promises. And so we are now in front of the test and in front of the exam of the Albanian people.
But we have to prove. I know you want to look forward, and that is important, but it is also important to deal with really significant events in Albania's history.
True.
And that video caused a great deal of concern. There were anti-corruption demonstrations at which 4 people were killed by the National Guard who were shooting from Sali Berisha's office. And you have said, and those guards were 2 senior police officers were charged and were acquitted earlier this year. And you described it as today's decision was the most barbarous crime in post-communist Albania. Now, this all stemmed from something 2 years ago. So it's hard to see how you cannot deal with it.
No, I don't think that it's up to me to challenge what I've said 2 years ago. I think that it's up to me to challenge the problems of the country together with everyone that is ready to do it. And as I said, we have 2 engagements, and one of the engagements is to follow with all the will the process that is supposed to bring in front of justice and is supposed to give the right decision against all of them that were responsible for the 21st of January
So Ilia
killings.
Meta was not, although he was in government at the time and Deputy Prime Minister, he was not responsible?
No, the killings have clear responsibilities, and these responsibilities have to be sorted out by the court.
And we'll come on to that in a moment. But this man that you have chosen to go into government with will give seats in your government. You are confident that he is clean. In your renaissance of Albania, this is a man who you can do business with because he is clean, and you are confident of that.
Again, I strongly believe that when one has to deal with corruption and when one has to deal with the deep problems created by corruption, has to keep in mind always that it's the system that corrupts people and not vice versa. I strongly believe that fighting corruption is about modernizing the system and making less and less possible for people to take advantages from a broken system.
So as far as those guards were concerned, there were 4 killings, and you said, I assure everyone that the events of that day, 21st of January 2011, one of those events that cannot be forgotten without undergoing a just trial. And one of the things you said is there would be a public trial of the PD leader, Sali Berisha, who was Prime Minister at the time, that will begin after these elections. Are you proposing to put Sali Berisha on trial?
No, I'm saying only that these events cannot be forgotten and cannot be judged in the old way that we are used to see the processes be transformed in farcical ends. So we will take all we can as measures to provide the real assistance for the families of the victims, to provide the real assistance for a process that should be independent from the government.
But the courts have dealt with it. It has gone to court.
It's going on.
So there will be an appeal of that ruling, and those 2 senior police officers.
The appeal is going on, and I think it's postponed. I don't know when.
And despite what you said at the time and have said since, Sali Berisha will not be tried or put on trial in any way for this.
But this is not about what I think or what I want. It's about justice system process. And when I talked about Sali Berisha, I said that he has all the responsibility in terms of moral and political responsibility. And when it
so what is that? Is the fact that he's now out of government, was that effectively the trial? The trial was on election day and that's it?
No. The trial has to go on, but in the basis of an independent process. What I can say, again, is that we will do everything we can to have a process where the families are assisted properly and where all the measures are taken to not let this be transformed in another farce.
Let's move on to corruption, or move on to talk further, because it is one of the biggest concerns about the European Union and about many Albanians. And one of the things that your now colleague in government, Ilir Mete, said of you a couple of years ago was that you had turned Tirana into a big laundry to clean dirty money. How clean are your hands in this system that you say makes everybody corrupt?
Now, we live in a civilization in which it's the accusators that have to prove the accused and not the accused to prove that they are not what they are accused for. So very simply I say that we have left for a long time in a political process that has been mostly about accusations and allegations, a kind of old politics that I want to leave behind, and that people of Albania want to leave behind, because
yes,
it's
but
time
it goes to this question.
I mean, you make another level, and the elections have been the proof that once we got on another level, talking about
but let's talk about the way of life in Albania. Let's talk about the way of life.
Things have shown that people have chosen the alternative of leaving all of this behind.
So which means what in terms of what you are going to do about it? Because you say it's down to the system. You've said before that if you put an Albanian civil servant into Germany, they'll not be corrupt because there's no space for it. But if you put Germans into Albania, after a few months they would be. It's not the people, it's the system.
Exactly.
So I ask you, if it's a case of the Albanian system and it's a system that you are in, are you therefore corrupt?
No. It's something completely else I'm saying. And I have proven by leading for 11 years the municipality of Tirana that modernizing a system of administration, you can tackle corruption, and I hope that all the recognition I've got internationally has been a proof that this has worked. So modernizing systems.
You're talking about a time where, when we talked about Transparency International, Albania slipped from 95th out of 176 countries to 113th over the last few years.
Yeah, it's an evaluation of the governance, and I have never been in government.
Okay, so what are you going to do about the fact that people have to pay doctors? They have to. I mean, it's not just doctors throughout the Albanian system.
I know.
Well, tell us. Explain. What is it? Everything you need doing in Albania, you have to pay money to get it done smoothly.
Okay, and there are very important experiences of others before that corruption is not God punishment that will go on forever. It's something that can be tackled and can be defeated. And let me give you an example. For example, we have a big problem, and it's old, in the management of customs and of tax collection, where there is a lot of corruption. And that's why we are working hard to set up a new procedure and call help from international bodies like, for example, Crown Agents, the British agency that has already made success stories in Bulgaria, in Ukraine, in Slovenia, in Macedonia and others, transforming the very corrupt Bulgarian customs at that time in customs that are working normally.
Customs now in Albania?
It's what I'm saying. So
how clean is it now?
So it's corrupt, and it's what I'm saying. You asked me what I'll do. I gave you an example. I can give you many other examples. We have to find the way to make reforms in the healthcare system that will transform the system from a broken one to a functioning one. And the judiciary,
because you'll know that there is analysts like Global Insights talk about one of the things you will have to do is to go in and effectively purge the civil service for a start. Get rid of all those people who have senior levels, and people say you're talking similarly about the judiciary, about re-establishing the police. Are you going to have a wholesale clear-out of people within government and the administration of Albania?
No, we don't need to do this. I strongly believe that there are very valuable people also inside the broken system. And as I said, what we need is to transform the system. We are not in the position to have to invent anything. We have just to follow success stories abroad. There are many success stories, even in very difficult situations, much more difficult than in Albania, that shows that corruption is defeatable, and we will defeat corruption. And of course, this needs very deep reforms. This needs a very strong will. But we have both. We have the platform for reforms, and we have the will.
Okay, now you also have a broken economy at the moment. You're not in recession. There are countries, many countries that are. You are not, but only just. But you do have serious problems, which has led the World Bank's country manager for Albania, Ksenia Lvovsky, to say that your finances are in such a poor state, you need to go to the IMF for money. Will you?
We are now waiting for a special program of IMF and World Bank that is supposed to make an assessment, an evaluation of the stability of the financial sector. We have encouraged the governor of Albania to go further with it, and this program hopefully will end before we have to come out with a new budget. And it's a kind of program that gives you the reality of the financial sector and also suggestions. And at the same time, we'll discuss very thoroughly about the opportunities that bringing in the IMF will have to give us.
And what she has said, she's talked about your ambitious program. She said it may be ambitious, but there's no fiscal room for major investments. And the scale of the things that you're talking about doing, you've talked about creating 300,000 new jobs, scrapping the flat rate 10% income tax and introducing progressive rates, which would mean that 95% of working people are better off. It's difficult to see how you can afford that.
That's why I'm elected, to do a difficult thing. Otherwise, why?
Where are you getting the money from?
They have to elect me. It's very difficult, but it's not impossible, because as you are insisting, and I think not without reason, we need to defeat corruption, and corruption and fiscal evasion take off a fair amount of money, and so bringing in at least 50% of it will give us a fair amount of money to do. So the money
to pay for your changes to taxes and also for the free health care that you're promising will...
No, this is a very literate translation. When I talk about free health care, I have in mind the NHS. So we have...
The NHS is not cheap. This is the health system of the UK.
No, I say free for people. I'm not saying free for the state, because this doesn't exist. So we have a system in Albania that is practically totally broken, based on health insurances, and as a matter of fact, we have a very large amount of people out of the system because they cannot pay the health insurance, because they are jobless.
But it's still this case.
So
these are things that cost money, and you are saying that it is going to come from cleaning up corruption. Is that where you're getting the money from?
It's one of the ways to answer to the question. At the same time, of course, we have to create, because cleaning up corruption means also having a better environment for foreign investments, having more investments, having more revenues, and so on. So
there's been talk of you being advised.
We are not elected to invent the wheel. The wheel has been invented, so we need to follow the track of successful countries in fighting corruption and getting over.
And are you being advised in that by Britain's former Prime Minister, Tony Blair?
We have started to discuss, yes.
What, some sort of...
To discuss on how he can help us in setting up the whole operation, and of course in prioritizing and going forward based on some priorities, to not lose focus and to get reforms done.
Which will turn Albania into a what? We talk about whether it's a land of prostitutes and illegal immigrants. What should the perception of Albania be?
Nice, normal, and very attractive Mediterranean country. Small one, but functioning one. And this is absolutely possible, because, as I said, we have not a functioning state, but we have people that have shown that when they are put in a condition to work, they do great, as they do here, as they do in Italy, as they do in Greece. So the same people, they are the same Albanians. When they are here, they respect the rules. When they are there, they try to escape, because the rules are written but are not implemented.
Edi Rama, thank you for coming on Hard Talk.
Thank you.
Now, if I can ask you.